Break it all down is WGN-TV's political analyst Paul Lisnek. Good morning.
Good Sunday
Paul.
morning, guys.
Glad to have you. So, let's talk about some of these congressional races that have really been tightening. The heavy hitters have been in Illinois. What's going on?
It raises a question because Illinois is a reliably blue state when things come out at the end, and yet President Biden here yesterday, Vice President Harris coming in today. In all fairness, Kevin McCarthy has been on the Republican side this weekend too. But the point is, why are the biggest guns coming to a reliably blue state? Now, the Democratic answer for that is, well, because we have to short things up and it's get everybody out and all that. And I understand that. But if they weren't worried about some of the districts like in Illinois, they'd be hanging around Georgia and Pennsylvania.
And some of those districts were redrawn to make them more reliably Democratic.
They were, especially the district for Lauren Underwood, for Bill Foster. But you know what? Polls are showing that those are really too close for comfort and tight for comfort. So we're going to keep an eye on those on election night.
Now we have the Illinois 17th, the northwest part of the state, which is it's a Democratic held seat right now, but it is a neck-and-neck race there, and also in the 6th with Sean Casten, that's also very close.
These late races didn't look so close a couple of months ago when the Dobbs decision came out, the abortion issue got put on the front burner of the agenda. A lot of people said, well, this, Democrats are certainly short up. But I said on our air at that time that, typically people have short memories, and so as we move now at that election time, it's not that abortion isn't important for a lot of people. It is, and it got a lot of women to register, but the economy always number one, and that's what people are generally voting on. It's the economy, and we're seeing some races. I mean, Sean Casten probably less comfortable than he would choose to be right now. Same thing with Bill Foster, same thing with Lauren Underwood. All of those races are a lot closer than they would have expected it to be a couple of months ago.
Okay, so looking at the statewide races, the state races, any surprises could happen there?
So, I mean, I look, again, reliably blue, so probably not, but it is sort of interesting for me to watch. We have one open seat this year. That's Secretary of State. We don't get open seats around here very much. Jesse White retiring. And so while the polls would show Alexi Giannoulias, the Democrat, with a comfortable lead, but Dan Brady, the Republican, he's a representative in the legislature. He's almost always dedicated his life to the Secretary of State's office. All of his legislation just has a lot to do with that. So I don't expect a lot of surprises, but if there is one, hey, you got to look at least at the open seat where there's no incumbent defending their territory.
One of the things that we've heard from Governor Pritzker is kind of that we are this sea of blue within a lot of red in the upper Midwest. When you're looking at how state law will go and the fights that will happen in Springfield over a number of issues coming into after this election, what do you see being top of the list here?
Well, I think what you're going to see, by the way, interesting you mentioned Pritzker, so it's interesting that he was not with Biden last night. He's going to be with Harris today. Whatever that means, I'm not sure, but it raises some interesting questions. So I think you're going to have to see a lot of economic pushes. Now, we're getting what's called the veto session in November. That's when Springfield goes back, but they can't pass things with a majority. It takes more. I think you're going to see a lot of efforts with the Safety Act. There's been a lot of talk about the Safety Act and how does this bail thing work and who's getting out and who's not getting out. It's a 700-page bill. I think a lot of legislators aren't real sure about how it works, but I think, Sean, that's where a lot of the action is going to be in November, which is to shore that up and make sure that the bill is doing what both Democrats and Republicans want it to do. They're both open to change, and I think that's where a lot of focus is going to be.
And then nationwide, everyone watching to see who will gain control of Congress. What's happening in some of these key states?
So, look, it's pretty hard not to see Republicans taking control of the House. It looks strong. The question is, there was a time when it was sort of iffy. History would tell us Republicans will take the House. I mean, that's just what happens in the off year of a president's term. But that being said, it looks like Republicans could be taking 20 seats, 25 seats, a lot more than I think they expected to take. Kevin McCarthy could end up Speaker of the House. We'll see how that goes. The Senate is still tough to call. You'll see some analysts telling you, Republicans are going to get it by 2 or 3. Now the Democrats are going to hold it by 1. Some say, no, it's going to stay the same. I just think anybody predicting the Senate today it's just a fool's errand because we really don't know. But you have to be watching Gaynor. Pennsylvania, Georgia, probably Pennsylvania could be where things go. But there's some other states like Nevada, which are really interesting because they looked reliably Democratic, and then all of a sudden you're going, maybe not. There's some real uncertainty. There's also the uncertainty of polling. So we're going to know in a couple of days, so we'll get to talk about it.
It's going to be an exciting night.
It'll be interesting if hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on campaigns and the Senate remains a 50-50 tie.
Wouldn't that be right?
But different seats switch.
Exactly.
You know, it happens.
Fascinating stuff, yeah.
All right. Hey, Paul, thank you so much. For more on election coverage, you can stay right here after the show for Political Report with Dr. Paul Lisnek.
And we're going to be having a couple of guests look at the state, national, and local races. And the president of the CBA, Tim Tomasic, is going to join us about the Illinois Supreme Court.
Oh,
because
yeah, we didn't talk about that.
That is in the balance. If Republicans win 2 seats, they take over the court.
Very interesting.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
Paul. And